Hello, and welcome to our second Promax Asia webinar and our very first panel session. We have an amazing panel for you today talking about COVID and creativity. I'm going to jump straight in and introduce them. So first, please welcome Dan Aldridge, sporting his proper COVID lockdown beard that would make Tom Hanks in Castaway jealous. Dan is Senior Creative Director at Warner Media. He's a true globetrotter. Before that, he was at BBC Studios in Australia and New Zealand. And before that, he was in London at NBC Universal. And he sports the most perfect Essex teeth possible. Next up, it's Craig Black. If you don't follow Craig Black on LinkedIn, you do not live. He is an ex-professional footballer, a typographer, a lettering artist, a printmaker, a muralist, a graphic designer. He's famed for his acrylic wood cut prints and massive installations. If you've seen him off in Barcelona, he paints cars. It's just wonderful. He's gold dust to brands. He's also the founder of Creative Inverclyde, which is a social mobility organization which brings about change through creativity and great design. And when you hear his accent, you'll realize he's Scottish. That's great. Our next guest is Lisa Frederickson. Lisa is one of the world's most awarded creative directors. She's got over 50 Promaxes, Kinsale Sharks, Clio's, and even a Cannes Lion. She's run creative teams in London and Australia, and she was named Creative of the Year at the Astra Awards. When she's not drinking tea, which is very British, she's playing the ukulele, which quite so much. And she's taking time out now to write her very first novel. And knowing Lisa, we know it will be sold for film rights very, very quickly. Okay, next, it's Joe Goddard. Joe is, you might know Joe because he was a keynote speaker at last year's Promax Australia and New Zealand, and he's the brains on today's panel. He's a media marketing specialist, and he's director of the Asia Pacific region for James Wilkinson Media. James Wilkinson Media are those wizards that look at broadcaster and streamers owned and operated media, and they work out how to maximize that revenue. It's proper magic. Before that, he was at Viacom in London, and he trained as a graphic designer before moving to the dark side of strategy. Give us a wave, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And then last, but in no means least, it's another Scot, Pauline Russell. Pauline is absolutely the queen of the rebrand. She's done literally every station, and she's another gold-winning powerhouse. She's won all the awards. Before she worked at the BBC, she worked at Discovery. She was VP Creative Director of Scripps Network, where she set up and managed the whole of the UK and EMEA team. She was a keynote speaker last year in Singapore at Promax. She was a Promax board director in the UK. She chaired the Promax Award, and she has the wonderful pleasure of working with me on a daily basis because she's creative director of The Brief Doctor. Hello, Polly. So give us a wave, everybody. Hello. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
So,
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
That is your crazy panel. So how this is going to work is I'm going to start with a question. We're going to direct it to someone and then have a debate. And as Andy said at the start, if you've got questions, put them in the chat and we'll jump up and do those towards the end. So the first question in this COVID and creativity is, we're all in lockdown. We're not going to the office. We're working from home. So how are you feeling and where is your head at? And I'm going to send that question first to Lisa.
Wow. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Hello from glorious Sydney. Yeah, so I guess I am in one of the better places to be at the moment in terms of we are starting to come out of lockdown a bit. Only I think it was on Saturday, I think the pubs opened and allowed 50 people. Ooh.
Whoa.
I know, everyone's jealous. And the other day I even had humans in my flat. I had 5 people, which was quite a treat. I've locked them in because I don't want them to leave. So yeah, I'm very well placed in terms of that. But obviously on a serious note, like anybody, that the pandemic has hugely affected me, and I guess it's hard to see when people around you are losing their jobs and my heart goes out to anyone who's doing it tough at the moment. There's plenty, and also, of course, people who are suffering from the virus itself. That's a serious bit with. I know we want to keep this positive, but I felt it was, I should acknowledge it. So yeah, I'm in lockdown. I'm a huge extrovert, so it's been quite challenging. However, I have found a way around it, and I'll share it with you. It's this. Thanks. Maybe I'll get a sponsorship deal after this. No, it's not. More innocent than that. It's absolutely creativity. And I don't know about you guys, but I found as soon as I kind of got locked down, the thing I just wanted to do was to make stuff. And I guess it means that for me, it was, I think when you feel you're losing your freedom, and is a time of uncertainty, it gives you a voice, and I felt like it was something I can't control what's happening around me, but I can control, how I'm responding to it and what I'm putting out there. So I guess creativity, put my teeth in, has been a huge tool for me, and so I think I'm in a decent space at the moment, Tim. Thank you.
So next, Pauline, let's flip that over to you. So Lisa gets her energy from being around people, bouncing off people. Pauline, you're more an introvert, so you like your own headspace. But is this a bit too much headspace for you?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I do. I mean, I guess like everybody, you have good days and bad days. For me, I'm used to working from home. I've been doing it for probably about 18 months now, and I thought this was going to be, quite easy. But then I suddenly realised it is the interaction with people. For me, it's like the leaving my flat, going to central London, having meetings with people, and all of a sudden that, that's just not happening. Yes, you do it over Zoom and things like this, but it's not the same. And it did actually take me a few weeks to work out that that's what was missing, because I thought, I can do this. I'm at home, I've got loads to do. I can fill my days. I've got routine. And then all of a sudden it was like, why am I starting to feel a bit down, or why do I feel restless? And I realized it was that simple act of going out and going in to meet someone, changing the location that you're in and not being able to do that.
So let's move on to Dan, because Dan, you've got flatmates, haven't you? So yeah. How's that working out for you?
Very interesting, Tim. I think we've kind of commandeered a place in the apartment. I'm pretty much confined to my bedroom for about 14 hours a day. So it's tough, but you can't, it's that fight or flight. You kind of have to, you can feel trapped, or you can kind of go, right, I'm going to try and sit on different parts of the bed. So I've hit all four spots in the middle. The middle's great. But in all seriousness,
they're not letting you in the bathroom, hence the beard.
Yeah, pretty much. They're taking my razors. So, no, it's difficult because I'm sharing with four people. So four different personalities, all having to work through WebEx and Zoom and Blue Jeans and whatnot. So you're trying to accommodate for people's personal space. So yeah, my safe haven is my room, but then what's in your room? If you want to express your creativity, I'm trying to use tangible things like my sketchbooks, my iPad that I've kind of kept looking at for the last year. So I'm now like, okay, I'm going to start sketching on that. So yeah, it's interesting, but it takes a bit of adapting that mindset. That's the thing.
Joe, what about you? Because you're recently married, so it's the two of you in an apartment. You're in a different city. How's that working out for you two?
It's been a nightmare. It's been a nightmare. No. It's been actually, because I'm used to working from home. So we work all over the world, and so I have an office and I've got a bit of a setup. So it's in terms of working routines, it's not really changed that much for me. But having someone else at home as well has made things a bit easier. It's nice having someone to have lunch with. It's nice having someone to talk to break up the day a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely been good having my wife around.
Oh, sorry, Joe, I just cut you off.
But I was just going to say, from a business point of view, I think it's actually been quite positive for us, because we've had a bit of time to sort of step back and think about what we want to do for the long term. Because I know we don't really get time to really take a step back, and because we're just constantly doing the day-to-day. So things like, how do we communicate to our clients better, researching, doing some online webinars and all those sorts of things. So it's been really important for that point of view.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's one of the things. For the first 3 weeks, I was really productive, and then I just went AWOL.
I think having a routine is really key to it, isn't it? And being proactive and just setting those boundaries along the day to get through. Yeah.
So let's ask this to Craig. So if you don't know Craig's work, you have to go and check out craigblackdesign.com. He does this amazing stuff, but it's really messy. It's paint, it's spinning around. How are you stuck at home, Craig, or can you get out to a studio and actually make stuff?
Well, this is actually my home studio. So I'm basically stuck in here all the time, which I'm used to. But during this time, my wife's pregnant, and so she is also a nurse for the NHS. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of confusion whether, because nurses were supposed to go back to work and the government were saying pregnant ladies stay off. So there's a lot of confusion at the start, which was quite challenging from a personal level. And in the professional aspect, my head was all over the place because I had no idea what was going on, and I was dealing with the personal stuff. But thankfully, my wife's off work now. But I'm used to working in the house on my own, and now she's around pottering about, making meals and doing the laundry and stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're distracting me here. So it's just getting used to that routine. But yeah, for me, she still let me do my crazy paints and building stuff, and just let me be my happy moment kind of thing.
Yeah, and in a couple of weeks that all goes, because that studio is becoming the bedroom for your daughter.
Correct. I don't know if you can see, there's like a little baby rocker in the corner. So over here is basically all baby stuff, and I was supposed to move out to a new studio, but obviously because of COVID, then that's just kind of went haywire, and I can't get anywhere. So it looks as if I'm going to be sharing a studio/bedroom with the little one when she gets here.
That's going to be a challenge. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question, and I'm going to aim this at Joe because it's a bit about strategy. Are we right in assuming that people are watching a lot more television? So both streaming and linear television, the ratings are up.
I think it's difficult to make a general comment about all behaviour, because behaviour changes. It's different in different markets. So, I mean, culturally, it's very different. Access to TV, broadband, all those sorts of things. But yeah, you're right. We have seen an uplift in people watching both streaming platforms, broadcast web platforms, as well as the linear television. But I don't think that COVID-19 has necessarily accelerated that transition between watching more digital than linear, because in fact what we've actually seen is the reverse, and more people actually coming back to the linear stream. But what is interesting about that is that we're getting the types of viewers that are coming in. So those viewers, the lighter viewers, the ones that don't normally watch TV, those that maybe watch 1 or 2 programs a week, they're actually spending a lot more time watching television. So that is a real opportunity to sort of target those particular viewers, talk to them about brand, talk to them about reasons to actually come back and spend some more time on your platforms. So I think that's an opportunity that I feel that could be utilised a little bit more in all of this, to recognising that those viewers that may have been really difficult to reach in originally, but now actually coming back to do it more.
And that's it. Oh, sorry, Joe. Carry on.
So no, I was going to say I haven't really seen that many brands or platforms that have really made the most of that. I mean, aside from the sort of social distancing sort of ads that sometimes come across a little bit gimmicky, I haven't seen many brands that really try to engage with those audiences and make a piece of marketing that are really relevant. I think a nice example was actually something done by MediaCorp, which is the public service broadcaster out here, and they did sort of exercise in your living room, a bit like the Joe Wicks 9 a.m. PE lessons that he does every day. And I think that's really nice. It's sort of relevant, it's timely, it gives value to your audiences, and it probably brings in a lot of audiences that the light viewers, so those that don't normally come into that to watch that piece of content. So things like that.
And if people in region don't know what Joe Wicks PE is, it's basically someone who looks a bit like a shaved version of Dan, does a PE lesson every day, and all the mums watch because they fancy him.
Well, you don't
So-
need a gym membership anymore, do you? You just need a resistance band and a yoga mat, and you're away. That's all you need. So,
and I
yeah.
suppose that's one of the great things about JW Media is that you work all across the world. So you can actually give insights to different stages of the pandemic. You can see what's happening in every territory.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was saying up front, it's given us a little bit more time to research those other markets and do some auditing on different platforms to understand how different broadcasters are communicating with their audiences. So yeah,
I'm so good at giving you the plug there for JW.
Thank you.
Okay, well let's move on from that, because what you've brought up there is something really specific. So Dan actually did. Lots of broadcasters and streaming services are using their own airtime to do sort of public service announcement messages. And Dan, you did one that was really fun with Cartoon Network characters and actually got picked up by other broadcasters from all around the world. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so as a team effort, we used the Cartoon Network IP to kind of focus on hygiene for kids. So we kind of created this kind of campaign thought, which was called Be Clean, Be Cool. And then we kind of got our M&M hats on and created a rap. So the team kind of crafted this brilliant script that was in a rap form that utilized our Cartoon Network characters about washing hands and being safe and clean in this kind of uncertain time. And then what was really interesting was then the different marketeers picked this up in the different regions, and it was localized. So Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, India. And then to keep the long tail of that, the UK and the US then plugged in and created other assets to keep that momentum going. So yeah, it's a real collaborative, international, I guess, approach. And it's got,
that's one of the things I really like, because I've worked in places where you've had something that's been made corporately in one region forced all around the world. And I've always found that there's elements within that work and there's elements that don't. So to be able to create an asset and then say, take this, but make it relevant to your local region is much better than creating something and just saying, play it everywhere, because it doesn't work everywhere.
No, for sure.
So let me move on to budgets are tight. We've heard this from a lot of people, and we've had some big projects put on hold. Pauline, do you think this sort of trend of people maybe holding on to a bit of money rather than spend it now is a trend, or do you think people are going to be not spending this year because of COVID? I throw that to Pauline.
I think it could be a bit of both. I mean, as you said, we had projects, we had workshops, everything was set up, and then it felt like initially there was a kind of panic because, people didn't know what was happening, how long this was going to go on for, so everything was like put on hold. But as it's continued and people are starting to adapt and adjust and realize that we're not going to go back to the way things are, things have to change, then people have started looking at different ways of doing things. So for us, we've kind of started to move more on to talking to people about consultancy work that we can do with them. But I think with the budgets, overall, we have to be realistic, and at some point, people will be looking at where they can save money because it has had an impact. But again, that doesn't necessarily have to be like a negative thing because, as I've said, you're moving into this new way of doing things, which, there's opportunities there. There's opportunities for new thinkings, for how you can promote things or do your work for the brands. And I think, then that's where the kind of exciting area for being creative can come to. So I don't think, yes, people will hold back initially, but I think when it's settled, once it started to settle and people are doing, as you said, Joe, it's like you've got time to focus on long-term planning. I think when people start to look at things like that, they'll look at areas where they need to be investing in or highlighting, and whether it is looking at like changing processes, changing workflows, brand strategy, just all those sort of areas. I think it is an exciting time to move forward because things do need to change. It's not going to go back to the way that people have done everything.
So that's a good time to bring Lisa in, I think. So Lisa is, she's been the person running big creative teams for a long time. She's been having these fights with finance to get budgets to make stuff. Now you're out there writing a novel. Do you look differently back in on the industry? Are you glad to not be having to deal with it right now?
Do you know what? No, I absolutely, I know, I love what I was working in the industry for 20 years, and I've absolutely loved every second of it, and I do intend to return. So obviously I'm not going to say that it was bad. I've absolutely loved it. I do think, like Pauline said, though, I do think there's also opportunities there. I mean, we all know that in times of crisis, that creativity, really does come into its own, I think. And I think it's a time, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that people are thinking differently. And I think you need to be sort of agile in the way you think, and think of different workflows and certain things. I think in terms of, creativity, I think when limitations are brought in, that's when we really come into our own, and new ways of thinking come about. And I think, for example, the whole shooting thing, obviously it's very problematic, but I know people have been shooting, but with obviously wearing the full Breaking Bad outfits, and it's quite difficult, but there are ways around it. And also I've seen some incredible spots where people have been thinking differently and thinking, okay, I can't make a big shoot, but I can really scale it down. And I don't know if you guys have seen, there was a Skoda campaign. It's called Shoot From Home. I don't know if you guys have seen it. A series of 3 films, and they actually charged 3 directors to go out and film basically in their living room, and the results are phenomenal. They're so amazing. And one of them was shot by the guy who's a creative director. He's also in it. He stars in it, and his fiance is basically filming it, and it's just brilliant. It's so imaginative, and I think so. It's a time to try new things, and
do you find, because crisis kind of brings out different elements of people's characters, do you think that this is do you think this is helpful, that we've gone onto this whole sort of Zoom culture, this lockdown? Does this give you inspiration for this book and for the next book? Is this something that, do you feel now you're constantly, your creativity, now you're in novel zone, is you're picking up scenarios and people thinking that could be a character for a future project?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because my book, I said it's going to be before COVID times. I think it's fun because my character's basically traveling. Do you remember that, guys, when we used to travel around the world? So I guess I've totally forgotten your question. What was your question?
No, it's just about that. Is this throwing up some good?
Oh, it's inspiration. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it's inspiration. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm writing a bit of a comedy, so I'm certainly seeing some highly amusing things, especially on Zoom meetings when people, accidentally forget they're not wearing any undergarments, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, fun. So there's plenty of good material there. Absolutely.
Because we kind of, quite a lot of the creative that we've seen dwells on doom and gloom, and we talked about this in last week's presentation, is that viewers don't want their, if they're going through a hard time, they don't want that reflected back to them. They want distraction. We're there to entertain. How do people feel about that being more entertaining in these times? Throw it out to anyone.
I think initially, the sort of we're all in it together, the self-shot, at home, on the mobile phone kind of ads that everybody seemed to do was sort of, we can bring you together. I mean, I remember, early on being at home, and there was an ad for Virgin Media, which was all about, we will keep you connected through this time. And I was just watching it going, oh, wow. And at the end, I burst into tears because there was like this, it was an old lady like waving, and I was thinking of my parents back in Scotland. But now it feels like it's moved on, and it's like, right, we've had that stage, we're moving through it, we're slowly coming out of lockdown, and it does feel that people want more of a kind of, inform me, entertain me. But I think the kind of sort of sad, we're all in it together stage has perhaps passed to a certain extent.
And they're my broadband provider, so they make me cry every time I stream anything because their broadband is so slow.
It's quite a big responsibility, isn't it? That we're sort of in the entertainment industry, and people are looking at us to sort of help them escape from what's going on in their lives. So, yeah, I think there's quite a lot of pressure, but I think collectively as an industry, I think it all comes together and it works well.
So that kind of brings up a good question. Is so Joe, Lisa, and Dan, you're all living in foreign countries in this time of crisis. It's very worrying. How is that affecting you? How you can work and your creativity, knowing your family are in different countries? You know, if something goes wrong, it's difficult. You can't just fly home if someone gets ill. I don't mean to say that too negatively, but it's scary.
Well, thanks a lot, Tim. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Well, that's the thing.
If we weren't worried before, we are.
Yeah.
My mum always wants me to come home as much as possible, but yeah, it's difficult because even when you get there, you have to wait 14 days before you can actually go anywhere, and then you've got to come back. So yeah.
I think. Go on.
Yeah. You've got the beard. Do you want to go? You don't trump me.
You're more pretty. You're beautiful. You go first.
Oh, you. I like you. Well, I forgot what I was going to say now. Basically, he's so charming. Yeah, it's difficult being. My parents are back in the UK, and my family are back in the UK, and I know that it's very, like I said before, Australia seems to have. We're a little bit further ahead in terms of releasing, and we do have some form of freedom. My mum and dad probably haven't been out for months, but I regularly, I FaceTime them all the time, and I send them little packages of food, send them the odd biscuit, and they're doing okay. And that's the way I kind of keep in contact. And it is really difficult though, it's a worry, and I just make sure they're not going out. So I'm like, you must not go out. You must not go out to the supermarket. And they're lucky that there's my brother's there and my auntie, and they've got lots of friends, to be there. But it's quite interesting because my dad, I'm always FaceTime. My dad's quite a character, funnily enough, and he's become really, really creative, and he's like been painting. So he keeps showing me all his, every time I go, and he shows me his latest work. So I think it's bringing out this creativity in so many people. So that's quite a kind of good thing.
I've set my parents briefs. I set my mum a brief called Quarantine Kitchen, so she has to kind of make different Indian dishes out of between 3 and 5 ingredients. And then my dad, he was, I guess, a DJ back in the 70s. So I've got this thing called expression sessions where he has to kind of narrate why he's put this kind of playlist together. And then from that, I've then started to share that with different mates around the globe. And then also I've tried to sneak out at like 5 a.m. on my Dixie bike. And I kind of took my mum around the Grand Prix track on Sunday, just going, look, Mum, I'm outside Lewis Hamilton's garage, whatever. She's like, oh, is he there? I'm like, no, Mum, he's obviously quarantined.
that is the best response we've had so far. Okay, so sticking with creativity, let's go to Craig. Do you think at the moment, because you're a really creative guy and your brain is constantly just ideas, do you think at the moment you are more creative or less creative than pre-COVID, if you can measure on that scale?
I would say right now, more creative. The first 2 weeks of the pandemic was a total write-off. I was quite overwhelmed with the news, social media, internet in general, and I basically had to unplug from the matrix. It was just too much. So from that, it made me just appreciate the simple things that we have in life. And I remember actually going down, so right outside my house is like this beautiful big promenade. And I walked down, and there's this recycle bin, which was overflowing because the council weren't working, they couldn't take it away. But there was loads of newspapers with type ripped apart and all laying everywhere. And all of a sudden I got this idea of creating up this kind of tear, rip collage kind of thing. So I went darting home that day, and for the past 2 or 3 weeks, it's led me into this crazy world of type and rip and collage stuff, which has actually led to, I've actually got one here. So this was the first one I did. Here's one I made earlier. Yeah. So I did this for a national campaign, basically to thank the frontline workers. And from that, it stemmed into this crazy world of commissions, because people loved the kind of style of artwork which I created during this COVID time. And it led to, I've actually got other stuff here. So I get commissioned by a client in India to create these custom limited edition shoe boxes based on this kind of typographic tear thing that I made up. And then also I got another commission is doing a branding in wine packaging based on the same concept. And it's basically this wine and brand. This is a prototype, which is me basically hand gluing and sticking together so it's all falling apart. But basically
I'm so glad you showed us the Go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, that all stemmed from the early part of the pandemic when everything was overwhelming and I'd actually had no motivation at that point. And then there was just that sudden spark of seeing something that I probably would never have seen because it was an overflowing recycling bin, which you never get, well, where asked it, you'd never really happen. So I'm glad it happened in a way. Now it's all cleaned up, it's all gone now, but it sparked something in me and it led into these amazing commissions that I get to do now. So yeah, and I think it's been a great time for me in terms of creativity, and it's led me to some late nights, and the wife needs to shout at me to get back into the real world.
Because I think, like, Craig is if you ever want anything with fonts, with lettering, with typography, Craig is the go-to guy for this. So he'd actually shown me the wine stuff a couple of weeks ago, and they were after a logo, a font, you know, sort of a font or a mark or something. And then Craig, just being this powerhouse, he's not only done that, he's not only done their logo, he's sort of redone their whole brand. He's done wine bottles, he's mocked them all up. It's kind of like, oh my God, you just give, you know, you're asked for something and you give like 700%. It's ridiculous.
It started off, it was originally one wine bottle, one flavour, one style. And I came up with this crazy idea. Imagine a whole range of wines based on this style of typographic collage, and you sat that on a shelf you'd see in a supermarket or wherever. And they came back to me on the phone call the next day saying, right, we're going to do another 5 styles of wine. We'll commission you to do these. It's going to go all across the world. And I'm just going, well done, Craig. just coming up with these ideas and pushing it. So yeah, just run with it.
So I'm gonna do quicker questions so that we can go across to the people on the webinar who've sent some in. So I'm gonna ask you each, what at the moment motivates you? Let's start with Pauline. What motivates you?
To be honest, it depends on the day, and I think it's like, you know, as I said, you have good days and bad days. Some days it's like you're just not in that right headspace, and I think, you know, it's fine to just accept that. I think for me, it is that like the opportunity, the idea, as I said, that things are not going to be the same, that, you know, you have to start thinking differently and, you know, thinking about doing things differently and even doing some different things. You know, I found that I've picked, you know, I've started painting. I bought some little tiny, you know, like sketchbooks and things, and I've just started drawing in them, something I haven't done for years. There's a project an art project that I've started doing, and I wanted to do it all around handwriting and get people to write in this notebook, but I've had to change how I do that because obviously you can't get people to write in it, and it is just that I think it's exciting to just think differently and think how you can do things.
Okay, same question, Lisa. What's motivating you right now?
I think it's the need to, like I said before, to have a voice and to feel like I have some form of control over what's happening. And it's also I guess I want something really positive to come out of this. When I look back, I want to think, oh, you know, I wrote a book, or, you know, I've also been learned to play the ukulele, which is good. My neighbours don't like it as much as I do. But I think desire to end up with something tangible that you're really, you know, you're proud of, and you're learning, and new ways of thinking, and kind of taking time to really, work out, you know, how things are going to be when we come out of this, and sort of new methodologies. And I think for me, it's also I have felt sort of hugely creative in this. And like I said, when I first went into lockdown, although, you know, obviously it's initially, like some other members of the panel have said, you know, it's very worrying and everyone's very traumatized watching the news. But my kind of, I guess, escape from that was, you know, creating. So I immediately went out, and I think I made like 5 little mini, you know, COVID-esque films. One was about bras, because I felt very, very guilty because my bra hadn't been worn for quite some time. For all the bras that are kind of, you know, now living on Skid Row in the world. So I did a little spot about that, and then I did things about washing hands and for me, yeah, it's been that's what I've really sort of been focused on, really.
Joe, what about you? What's your motivation? What's driving you right now?
I think I'm quite passionate about giving back and helping, encouraging others to learn. I mean, Jade, we're starting to do some some mentoring sessions and marketing surgeries to help others that are struggling. I find myself in a fortunate position that I've got a job, and I know there's many people out there that haven't, and they're looking to change their careers and things like that. So I think it's about reaching out a hand to say, right, who needs some help? How can I pass on my knowledge to help you move on with what you're doing? Doing a bit of volunteering work and things like that out here. So I think yeah, that's what I'm being motivated by at the moment.
Wow.
Brilliant. Dan?
Make us look really bad.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm doing that as well.
And what about you? What's your
appreciation for developing new skills? Like Pauline was saying, like trying to develop more, I guess, illustratives, illustrations and stuff. But I think also outside, when I can get outside, actually appreciating the environment around us. It's less cluttered. You're listening to things that you wouldn't necessarily hear before, seeing things that you just discard. And I think that's really important. So by being on, like going for runs or cycling, I'm seeing things so differently, looking at Singapore in a completely different light, which is it's quite liberating in that regard.
It's the runner's world at the moment, isn't it? It's
yeah, but early in the morning, not during the day.
Before it gets hot.
It's amazing. Sorry. I was going to say it's amazing. You do kind of know, like you're saying, just the joy of the simple things. Like I found, I was walking the other day and I just saw a beautiful leaf that looked like a big grin, and then next to it two little flowers, and you just, all these things sort of suddenly sing to you and come alive. Because you have got the time, because we're sort of living in a much more unstructured kind of, I guess, in terms of,
it opens your mind up a lot more.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's incredible, and that's great for the creative, isn't it? Because you're constantly looking. And I just see ideas. I don't know, you guys, just everywhere I look, I think there's an idea. There's and I just want to film it. I mean, I was in the bath the other day. I know, surprising. And in preparation for this session, I thought I'd better have a wash and get my pajamas. And we've got like rubber ducks, and I'm even sort of saying, what little film could I make involving rubber ducks? So just feel the urge all the time to just put stuff out there. And I don't know, maybe it's just.
You're a dynamo, Lisa.
I know, I can't help myself. I drive my partner insane.
And Craig, so what's motivating you? You're probably the one going through the biggest life change. You've got COVID, you've got a daughter on the way. What's your motivation right now?
I think mostly because I run my own business, and this is my plan A. I have no plan B, so I need to make this work because I do have a little girl on the way. Got responsibility, same as everybody else in that sense. But I've seen, I think Joe says that there's agencies that have kind of even folded, there's been people losing their jobs. And I've just seen that as a kind of a warning for me, just to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I need to continue on and push the boundaries as much as I possibly can to make sure that business continues. And thankfully, and I'm super grateful to all the clients that have came on board since then, and it's picked up even more. So that's kind of been my main driver, is the little girl on the way, and just make sure that that's going to be taken care of.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to go across to the questions from the audience. What are you looking forward to most? So let's start this time with Dan. What are you looking forward to most after lockdown?
You know what? Singapore's like renowned for food, right? So I think I'm actually wanting to have a sit-down meal with people around me. It's because we've been in lockdown since Joe, like mid-Feb, something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. So actually, instead of just getting a takeaway and then bombing it back to the condo, it'd be nice to be surrounded by people and actually appreciate. And to Lisa's point, like the simple things. I think that's something I'm really.
I agree with you. I think that would be one thing that I'd like to do: sit down and have a cup of tea at a cafe and take my mask off and just be able to just do that, because that's something that you sort of miss. And especially working from home, you really rely on those sorts of moments where you can go and sit and see something else. But
my team also know that I love a scone. and so I'm missing things. I don't know why.
So British, so British.
Oh, we'll send you some. We'll send you some.
Yeah. Yeah. Pauline, what are you most looking forward to?
I would have to say it's basically going back to Scotland and seeing my parents, just so that they can tell me face to face how bad my hair is getting. But hopefully I'll be able to get it cut before I go back.
Lisa?
It's interesting. I'm with Pauline. I want to hug my mum and dad. I think it's a simple thing, and I think it'd be really amazing. Obviously, my brother too, and also getting my roots done.
Okay, so what about you, Craig? What are you most looking forward to when this is all over?
I know I should say giving my mum a hug, but I'm really looking forward to a nice cold pint, like going to the pub and getting a pint. That's seriously, I kind of have dreams about it now. Is that crazy?
You could design a new beer label. Okay, that is. We're going to ask a couple more questions at the end, but now we're going to throw over to the audience. So, Rajika and Andy, do you want to come on with some audience questions?
Hi.
Hi, Rajika.
Hello.
Welcome
Hello.
to the panel.
Hello. Okay, I have about 2 questions. They're saying, can you tell us about the most challenging project you worked on and how is the best way that you handled it? Just one sentence or few words here and there.
Should we start with Craig?
During this time, the most challenging was actually a dream project of mine. I can't totally tell, but basically it's football and typography. And during this time, I thought it was going to not happen at all. But they had a deadline to get it done, and it became drastically very, very short than the original deadline. So I had to work through the night to get it done in a space of 4 days, and it was horrific. But I then took a week off after that just to chill out and get myself back to normal. So that was super challenging because brands and businesses are at different scales also during this time. So being able
and
to
that's your dream job, isn't it? That was your dream commission. Yeah.
Oh, like this is like this smell doesn't give you justice to how much this means to me. So
we can't say who it is.
Not yet.
But what we can do is once it's done and dusted, we'll send it to Andy and he can post it out.
Yes.
So they can see this
definitely.
amazing secret project. Okay, same question to Lisa.
Do you mean now in times of COVID, or do you mean generally the hardest job I've ever had to do? Sorry?
In general.
Oh, fantastic. That's good. I haven't answered that. Well, I think one of the hardest jobs I ever had to I was directing a shoot, and it was a really, really big production. I won't mention what it is or tell say anything about it any more detail, because I could get murdered. But it was they refused basically to lock down to an idea of anything. So I kept going and pitching ideas, and it would get past the executive producer. Then there were quite a few different sort of talent involved, and each one would have a different idea. So they had this incredible notion that we'd just turn up on the day and let the magic happen. Can you imagine? So I had to direct the shoot, and it was a massive. There was a lot of, as I say, a lot of talent involved, and there was like a crew of, I think we had about 80, or ridiculous, with all the makeup artists and everything. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I had to just, I think, be really cool and calm, and just you know, kind of whisper to the DOP, I don't know, just do a wide shot, and I think you just have to roll with it. And it's, thank God that I was quite experienced, and yeah, it's about sort of playing it by ear, staying calm, knowing when you've got a great crew around you, it really helps, because they also have ideas, and I think we just had to just shoot, and then makeup as we went along, really, and it was quite an interesting shoot, I shall say. I'll never forget it.
So someone who's always calm in a crisis is Pauline Russell. Like she will poker face you, she'll do client face, even if she is about to kill you. You will not know until you get the stare. So, Pauline, what is your trickiest one?
No, I'm trying to think. I had a tricky one at BBC Studios in basically the BBC Worldwide have a big event, Showcase. It's a massive sales event. It happens every year in February. I was responsible for the delivery of all of the assets, the digital assets for it, which fortunately we had made, because a week before Showcase, there's an internal pre-Showcase event. 2 days before Showcase, the whole server system at the BBC went down, completely went down. And everyone was just panicking. What are we going to do? This Showcase was meant to be, it was going to be different. Like, the events were going to be done in a different way. But because the server had gone down, everyone was worried that all the content wouldn't be able to be delivered or shown. And basically, it was a case of just sitting down with everybody and kind of calming everybody down. And as you say, Tim, I think I was very much being very calm on the outside, secretly crying on the inside. But at the same time, I did know that we had the assets on a drive somewhere. So it was explaining to people, look, no one apart from us knows that these events, like the premiere events, the actual events with the talent, are going to be slightly different. So if we can't do them because we don't have the bits of content we need, we can just do them in a different way. You know, the audience aren't going to know. And then, yeah, we managed to deliver everything. Fortunately, the server did come back up, was back up and running. But I think it was more like, you know, backing everything up was a big thing. I was glad that we'd done that. We did have 2 versions of everything, but just being very clear in communication with everybody. But I did have possibly one of the most scariest phone calls of my career, because I had to speak to IT after everything had been delivered and we'd gone through it and we knew we had everything, and then I had to say, we've got everything, it's all fine. And that is when they basically junked the whole server, and I was terrified that I'd done it at the wrong time, but I didn't.
Oh, perfect. Dan, what about you?
Nightmare.
2 really quick ones. One, moving to Australia to launch BBC First. So that was, we had a creative team in-house, but it was to migrate them off Avid onto Premiere, move an audio system in-house, and then launch a channel within a few months. So that was pretty intense. And then I think, not project-wise, but in terms of a kind of production process, implementing a BCP, business critical plan, like that's been interesting over here, and it would not have been done without the team. Like they've done a sterling job. We're having to fire hard drives via courier continually, but we've managed to still keep the kind of the asset list and providing all the deliverables on time. So that's been an interesting and testing time, but we wouldn't have been able to do it unless everyone was communicating and working to the optimum. So
okay, and Joe, what's your biggest?
There's probably not one big one that stands out. I mean, all our projects are very different and they all have their own individual challenges. But I think one of the big things that we have to overcome is, because we build marketing strategies from a central perspective, it's trying to get all the stakeholders to work together as a team. And when we're trying to convince people, yeah, you're all together in this, and you should have the same objectives as a business. So you often have very strong personalities from, I know you've got creative and you've got marketing and you've got research, and all these guys are coming together with their own strong opinions and why we should do certain things. And I think it is sometimes difficult to sort of frame the insights and use that data to build up arguments to help to build the argument to make change together, because that's what it's all about, bringing people together and working for a common goal. So I think that's probably it.
Brilliant. Rajika, did you have another question from the audience you wanted to get in?
Yes, there's another one from Anna. She says, post-COVID, what do you think will be the positive changes in the ad agencies all over the world?
Joe, that's probably a good place to start back with you. Positive changes.
I think a positive change in the ad agencies. I think probably the digitalization of work processes. I think people need flexible options to be able to work from home and having the infrastructure in place so they can do these types of things and communicate to each other much quickly. I think that's a really good thing to come out of the industry, and I think it's about time that people have invested into that type of thinking to give people more flexibility around getting their work-life balance right. So yeah.
Great, some mental health stuff as well. Dan will include, with ad agencies, will include creative teams or, in-house agencies, will include them all. So what do you think is the big thing that's going to come out?
I think, I think it's forced companies' hands a bit in the fact that as creatives, we're seen to be, you go in at 9 till 6, whatever, and an idea is supposed to just pop into your head at your desk. And that isn't the case. You wouldn't even know where my ideas want to come from. Lisa's obviously exchanged her duck story. But I think, it gives the opportunity for us creatives to work from home and still get the product delivered on time. So I'm hoping that businesses will be a lot more flexible in the working hours and the ability to explore creative ideas outside of the office domain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's bring Craig in at that point as well. So we'll say ad agencies, ad agencies are often your clients. So you probably get a certain brand goes to an ad agency. They say, this is an amazing job for Craig, let's get him in. How do you think that as someone who works with ad agencies on a daily basis, who often take credit for your work?
Well, I think it gives them probably a bit more confidence in doing remote working during this time, because they're seeing good results as if you were just in the studio yourself, because the increase in workflow that I've got in the past 10 weeks has been crazy from ad agencies from across the world. So they're now kind of giving more confidence to saying a guy over in Scotland can do the work for someone over here in America. So I think it's giving them more confidence that way, and hopefully that leads to the same with the teams and stuff, because what I'm hearing is a lot of kind of brands and agencies in the States specifically are not going back to the office until next year. This is just the clients I've been working with, and they're saying, yeah, our CEO is saying January time, until we have a more clearer idea of how vaccinations are going to go, how it's all going to pan out. So it's giving more responsibility and being a bit more open to remote working. And I think that's a positive. It's worked for me, so I can only speak from my point of view.
Lisa, what do you think about that?
I was going to reiterate basically what you said. Yeah, in terms of just the way we work. Before, it was always a struggle being a creative. Obviously, it's hard to come up with ideas. There and then when you're in an office, there's noise going about, and it's always, I have ideas like, in the bus or in a shower or anywhere. I've always have ideas. Occasionally in the office, but I think this whole notion of, I think with always creatives, if we're not in the office, it's always the kind of thing, the thought of, you're probably down the pub, which we are, yeah. No,
we get good ideas.
That's not the case. Yeah, you get good ideas at the pub, and they seem good at the time, but they're invariably maybe not as good the next day. But I think it's just that kind of trust that you don't have to be sitting at your desk. Incredible work, you can
trust is a really good word.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, because the proof is in the pudding, isn't it?
I kind of think I think this is, like you've all said, I think this is forced the hands of people who don't necessarily know how creative people work to understand that, the average commute in London is 15 hours a week. If you gave every week a creative person 15 hours back into their life, what would that do? I don't leave Crouch End anymore.
See, just on that note, see someone in my position, you need to explain the kind of creative process for someone working at home as well, because there's a lot of ad agencies or businesses who are not used to remote working. So if you've already got that experience, it's good to educate whoever you're working with how it all works out and how you work and you flow. So no, I don't necessarily work 9 to 5. Like, I got different times of the day where ideas spark, usually when I'm not even in here. So it's good to be kind of open, and that trust is a big thing to do.
Yeah.
Big thing part of it, sorry.
Yeah, I think the truth is, when people actually see something works, then there's no sort of there's no reason not to let that be the way forward. So I think.
Yeah. And as a business owner, I think it's one of those things that is, when we give you a product, like some clients we have still, want billable hours. And it's like, what is the relevance of how many hours we spend on a project working for you? surely it should be the value of what you get from what we are giving you. And however we get to that doesn't really matter. The methodology, if you trust and you get what you want, does it matter? Pauline, I didn't bring you in on that conversation. What do you think is the most
kind of more or less what everybody else said? It's like, you know, trust in the creatives, I think the understanding of the process, but perhaps also it's maybe, you know, again, it's going back to that, you know, doing things differently, or taking some risks, or realizing that you can turn around good creative quite quickly as long as you have the budget to do it. But, you know, because lots of the brands have been reactive, you know, through this crisis, and I think it's maybe more looking at, you know, where they can go with that. But I think it's trust and the way of working. I mean, I just think, you know, I think Dan really hit on it by saying, you know, creatives working remotely. I just think one of the most depressing things I used to see in an office, is creatives sat, you know, everybody clock watching. It's like, you know, 5:30 on a Friday and I've got to go out. It's like, you know, if you're done and you've delivered what you're meant to deliver, go home. That's what I would say, in my opinion.
I think for me it's a flexibility to do both as well. I mean, I wouldn't ever want to, because I believe that when you get creatives together and a group of people together, you get so many amazing good ideas that will spark off. So I wouldn't want to you know, constantly work away from an office, for example. I think it's balance, and it's, if you need to be in the office, you're in the office. That's the key, isn't it? Whereas if you don't need to be there, you should be trusted that you're going to be getting on with what you need to be doing. So I think it's that flexibility that I hope will come out of this. Is that,
can I just add to that? I think it's important that there's a balance as well. Like there's more to life than work. So if you're working from home, I think it's important to set boundaries and decide, right, this is the time when I do stop work and then do something that I actually want to do, because otherwise it becomes everything, doesn't it? So I think,
and that is one of the things we're seeing now, aren't we? That the whole idea of Zoom meetings is presenteeism. People are, if you're in a normal office space, I talk to people whose diaries are, you know, they try and fit you in, and I've got Zoom meetings from 9 to 5, and it's like, if you're replicating our meetings working from home, there is something wrong with your structure. Zoom meetings should be 5-10 minutes. You don't. Why is your diary full of meetings if you work in a creative environment? That's just people not understanding how to work from home. That's why trust doesn't exist.
It's draining. It's draining, isn't it? Zoom meetings are so draining as well. So it's kind of counterproductive.
Rajika, did you have any more questions you wanted to put to the panel?
There's one, I don't know whether that's the correct one, but if you could just answer this for me. It's someone called Mahesh from India. He's asking, data transfer to footage-based promo is becoming very challenging. Are there any tools or shortcuts that you all would recommend, or do you all use?
So I suppose that one is, Dan, what do you use? You've all got your own upload file system for the companies you work with.
Yeah, so we've got a multitude of different kind of ways. We've got Dropbox, we've got hard drives where we're physically taking material around. We've got a central MAM. So I mean, in this scenario, it's easier to upload stuff onto Dropbox and then download. We have a thing in the States which has a kind of, you can access it via your own password and download things, but it also depends on your internet speed and whether it's something that's super secure or it's something that you can put on an open system. So it's really dependent on the content.
Yeah. When you've got masses of media, I know it's quite analog, but that hard drive is still one of the easiest ways. I use WeTransfer quite a lot for big files, but again, if you don't have good internet speed, it's not very good. Okay, Andy, did you have some questions you wanted to ask?
I think you more or less covers most of the question being asked. I think we are coming to the end of this discussion.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to throw back to you.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so we've done. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one final question, and then I'll hand back to Andy to finish it. So, each of you, what is the main one thing you personally have learned or want to take away from this experience? Mine is I never want to commute again, unless it's on a nice first or business class aeroplane, which I'll happily go back to. So let's start, Dan. What's the one thing? What's your one learning or takeout from this whole experience?
Man, that's a
Get it. Don't have flatmates.
Honestly.
Get a studio apartment.
I think me time is the travel thing you just spoke about. Actually, when you get rid of that, you actually have more time in the day, and so then you can actually optimize being more creative. So I'm definitely going to carve out more time for experimentation in my personal projects. I think that's something that I've built momentum up, and I want to continue doing that.
Great. Lisa?
I think mine would be, I've really realised that the importance of creativity in my life, and that is not just a job, and that it's clearly something that I go to when I'm worried or doing it tough. I think it's something I really appreciate, and in terms of how it really lifts me and it makes me feel better, and makes me feel more human again. So I'm grateful for that.
Mm.
Brilliant. And the novel's coming out soon.
Yes.
Craig? Yeah.
Available at all good bookstores.
Yeah. Craig, what's the one thing you're going to take out?
Mine's is probably a bit more soppy, but I would say like the appreciation for close friends and family, especially during this time. Like I actually got to reconnect with cousins that I've not spoke to in God knows how long, and there's no reason for that. It's just life. And then just reconnecting them with them again, just checking in and see if they're okay, has made me appreciate that I should be doing this more. So definitely made me kind of realign those kind of factors in my life, definitely.
He's going to be awful when he gets this child. He's just going to be crying all the time. It's going to be emotional. Okay.
Got that nightmare.
Same question to the last two. So Joe, what are you going to take out from this whole experience?
I think it's probably highlighted to me the importance of certain personality traits, I suppose, maybe just being flexible and agile and adaptable, because we don't know where the next change is coming. And I think in this world, it's so fast paced. I think we all have to be on our toes constantly. So it's constantly having that mindset, I think.
And finally, Pauline, what are you going to take out from it?
I think it's the me time. It's having that time to just pause and reflect, and perhaps not try and do every single thing that you want to do at once, and just, looking at what the moment that you're in, and not like panicking about, everything else that's coming in the future, or looking at all the productivity of people on social media who at the beginning were learning 25 different languages, were baking, were writing a novel, no offense, Lisa, and everybody, was like, I'm going to do all these things. But I think
you were my best friend once.
I know. I think it's just having that time for yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, we're going to leave it there, and I really just want to thank this panel, because these were the 5 people who I really wanted on the panel, and they all said yes. So I'm just so pleased that you all came. Those are Dan Aldridge, Craig Black, Lisa Frederickson, Joe Goddard, and Pauline Russell. I've been Tim Hughes. I'm going to hand you back to Andy, but thank you very much, and look after yourselves in this crazy time. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone. And thank you, audience, for being with us here today. We hope you enjoyed this week webinar. If you have any question or any suggestion or comment how we can be better, email to us at webinar@promaxasia.tv. That's webinar@promaxasia.tv. Do join us again next week. Until then, we'll see you.